IVM.
Hello and welcome to Simblified, the show where we are in a constant hunt for our tagline. So today we have the four of us, which is a welcome return to normalcy, so to speak, in some ways, or abnormalcy, if you prefer that. But so today we have we're going to be discussing what, Tony?
I think before we get into it, we have to go into
we have a tremendous profundity coming
profundity sent in by a listener.
Twitter fan.
I want to say fan, but thank you, Arun Ganesh, for this wonderful profundity. It is basically a black background with three decreasing sizes of hand, one in each other. And the text reads...
Actually, Tony, now that we are also on YouTube, you can just share. I also have a look at the profundity.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, it says friend, boyfriend, girlfriend, best friend. Everything has an end because, friend, boyfriend, all of them end in END, except family, which ends with ILY, which is I love you.
Wow.
If you love your family, click like and share. I think we should all click like and share.
Yeah. Wow. What if you don't like your entire family? Like, what if there's one random uncle that you don't like? Do you still click and forward it? That's the important question we need to get.
Yeah. Don't forward to him. See, you should have WhatsApp groups which also have N-1 people on it. So everyone thinks this is the main group, but you have like a subgroup.
Makes me think about the end of Simplified, which is IED, which is fairly explosive. So
everyone is furiously figuring out what the last three things of their names are.
Yeah. So, since we last spoke, I think about a year ago, what we were discussing was the World Happiness Report, where India was nicely at 144 out of 156. I'm happy to report that we've climbed the rankings to 139.
Wow.
But unfortunately, the denominator has also dropped to 149. So,
wait, there are fewer countries now in the world
participating in the report, I guess.
Participating in the report. What geopolitics have happened?
Yeah, but they can make a nice graph out of it to say how India.
So the net number, we are actually worse off then.
Yeah, pretty much. Yes.
I mean, relatively.
Yeah, but so today's thing has nothing to do with India, but it is called the Kolpak deal, which is basically a sporting thing, which actually is linked to trade agreements.
Mm-hmm.
And when Srikeit mentioned it last time that we are in a post-Trump era, we forgot to mention that we are actually in a post-Brexit era, guys. And apparently, like, it has happened and like a deal has gone through as well.
Oh,
right?
man, yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And like really funny things have happened since Brexit, right? Like there's this truck driver who was driving to Netherlands, and he was stopped at the border and he was asked, does your sandwich have ham in it, meat in it? He said, yeah. And he's like, no, you can't bring it into Europe because now like you can't bring fruits, vegetables, meat, anything without like a proper permit. So he had to throw his sandwich away at the border.
Well,
yeah. Any of you have any funny Brexit stories that you remember?
I mean, there were 5 simplified episodes.
Yeah, that's still fewer than the number of prime ministers who Brexit. No?
A funny Brexit story. I think Srikeit can talk endlessly.
Funny enough, actually, I honestly have gotten a little off the Brexit wagon in some ways.
So have the 5 prime ministers. So have the prime ministers.
Okay, the fundamental of the deal itself was it was sold as this heroic deal achievement in some way, but obviously it caused the UK to get badly screwed. I mean, one of the biggest self-goals of all time.
Yeah, and who saw that coming?
Yeah. but at the end of the day, the big win for the Tory government in the UK is that they got to announce a deal was made, and the fact that they kind of got buried into more complicated headlines rather than more. When you announce you've got a deal, very few people want to read what's in the deal. And and that's where you
the
actually
art of the deal actually says this, which no one has read either. So.
So now basically all the nonsense which nerds like us might want to read up on, the general public is unaware of. And so actually the one thing that I have noticed is that the Tory government is actually, their favorability ratings are actually going up in some ways gradually again. So while in the US, Trump kind of burnt briefly and brightly,
bright orange,
the movement in the UK might be here to stay for a while actually.
Interesting. Yeah. I think this whole saga would make for a nice comedy series called No Prime Minister.
No Prime Minister.
So anyway, we want to simplify what is called the Kolpak deal, which is basically like around sports in England, actually in Europe, but specifically because of Brexit, there have been some changes to this whole thing. So I don't know if you know, I mean, England always has had like so many foreign players in its team, right? Like the other day, Wasim Jaffer, who has now retired from playing cricket, but has started a bright new innings on Twitter as the biggest of all trolls.
Yeah.
So I think Michael Vaughan said the Mumbai Indian side is much stronger than the Indian team or something like that. And Wasim Jaffer immediately tweeted back saying, not all countries can have four foreign players, Michael. Because like England cricket has always been built on like foreign players, right? Whether it's Kevin Peterson,
much like their empire.
Yeah. Jofra Archer of late.
In fact, I think who said, Bob Hope or somebody said, right? I think this was, the context was the race to put the first satellite in space. So Russia did that before America. And Bob Hope said the reason is their German Jewish engineers are better than our German Jewish engineers. Putting that into context,
But generally, the UK has been the most efficient engine of converting foreign resources and talent into their own, right?
Yeah, well, France won the Football World Cup also.
But UK was the pioneer. Like I mean, generally they led it, and then afterwards France and generally Europe, the colonizing powers have developed a fairly time-tested, efficient engine for this.
Yeah, but the difference I wanted to say between like Kevin Peterson, Jofra Archer, etc., is that they got to play for England because either their grandparents or parents, in Jofra Archer's case, were actually like English citizens or had an English-British passport and stuff like that. But the interesting thing about the Kolpak deal and how it came about is something that we'll get into. So actually it started with something called the Bosman ruling, which was, there's a player called Jean-Marc Bosman, who was a football player in Belgium. And once his contract ended with Belgium, he wanted to play in France, right? So, but like there was some disagreement about his contract, and they said we won't, allow you to work here, etc., etc. So he promptly went to court, and they said as long as you're a EU citizen, you can work freely anywhere and stuff like that. So for EU citizens, it didn't matter. So you could just be treated as like a non-foreign player for these purposes of like foreign quota and stuff like that, right? But that was only for EU citizens. Then there was this guy called Maros Kolpak of the Kolpak deal, who was a handball player and from Slovakia, actually, right? And he was playing in the German Handball League. And Slovakia at that point in time was not a part of the EU. And his team actually dropped him because the Handball Association had a rule that you can have only 2 overseas players, right? So he again went to court and said that although Slovakia was not a member of the EU, it had a European Union Association agreement, and therefore, like you are allowed to work like any other EU citizen, and there should be like no quota system in place. So that was upheld in the EU, and basically it immediately had ramifications on English cricket, right? because their county league actually says that you can use only one overseas player, right? But now the logical question is, this is only for EU. No one else basically plays like strong cricket in Europe, right? So how does this whole thing affect them? Which is where they had another kind of agreement called the Kotonu Agreement, which was basically to uplift the poor colonies and stuff like that. So they've got like a trade agreement with Africa, West Indies, etc., which means the same kind of thing applies to countries like South Africa, Zimbabwe, and West Indies and stuff like that. So technically, what that means is that although English counties allow only one overseas player, based on this Kolpak ruling, anyone who is from any of these countries, South Africa, Zimbabwe, or the West Indies, gets treated as like a EU at the same category. So you're not an overseas player. Wow. So that basically opened up so many opportunities. Yeah.
Wow. Just as a side note, Kotonu is like that city in Benin or something, right?
Possibly.
Yeah. I mean, this is some random geography fact. I was just trying to find etymology of Kotonu.
Yeah. I haven't done enough research.
No, continue, please.
Yeah. So that was basically...
So the whole thing is basically they redefined what country meant, right, in the context of this. So the law said you can have one guy from another country. And these guys are like, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. whole world is my country, so everyone is welcome. That's basically what happened. Yeah. Except that everyone who had a trade deal was in.
Yeah. But in parallel, there are three things, right? So the English Cricket Board actually did not want to encourage this because otherwise they could have just said, have multiple overseas players, right? So, and if you have only one overseas player quota, then it means that it will be an international cricketer of the likes of Zair Khan or someone who goes and plays there, not necessarily someone who's up and coming. So, the problem that South African, Zimbabwe, and even West Indies players face was they don't have like a proper domestic system, right? Yes. So, in fact, Jofra Archer moved to England because he didn't make the under-19 team of the West Indies, and he's like, if you don't make that team, then like your career is as good as over.
Dead,
yeah. So, therefore, these guys didn't decrease the quota, but to discourage using these Kolpak players, they said like per match we'll pay you like £1,000 less if you use like a Kolpak player and stuff like that.
Really? Oh.
Yeah. And the counties are like, please pay us £1,000 less. These guys are better.
Yeah.
So in parallel, what is happening in countries like South Africa has like a history of like being extremely
racism,
not very kind to its people of color, right? So I think only 8% of South Africa is white or something, but technically like almost all of their sportsmen in cricket and rugby used to be white and stuff like that. So they wanted to correct that. So they've got a system going where 6 out of 11 players need to be, of color.
Otherwise, they will never get in. Correct.
But obviously, like the media and narratives are driven by colonial hangover and stuff like that, right?
Really?
Yeah. But South Africa, interestingly, so right now their cricket team is not the greatest. But if you look at their rugby team, right, which first won the World Cup after Mandela became the premier and stuff like that, that team had the rugby team, which is Springboks, had only one black person.
Black player,
I don't think as immortalized in Invictus, right?
Invictus, yeah.
But in 2019, they won the World Cup again with their first black captain, Siya Kolisi and stuff like that. So, and with, I think, 12 black players in the squad and stuff like that. So, but even the funny part is even Siya Kolisi is saying that, you shouldn't have quotas and reservations and stuff like that because it's looked down upon as such a bad word, no, unfortunately. Even when like you try to apply principles of natural justice, like people look on it as like a bad thing. So that was happening in parallel in South Africa, which means there was an exodus of white players to England and stuff like that, right? And so what these guys did then was they amended the rule sometime in 2008 or 2010 to say this Kotonu Agreement actually applies only to like trade and goods and not to like employees and players and stuff like that. So this meant that you had to spend at least 4 years in the country to qualify and stuff like that. And people actually still moved because they wanted to do a better thing and stuff like
so
that.
they'd prefer going and staying there for 4 years and then do nothing and then start be eligible.
Yeah, correct.
That seems like a huge HR oversight on life art.
It is also an enormous risk because you go today and you don't know if you'll be at the top of your game 4 years from now because it's relative, right? What if, it's like that Dilip Doshi and Bishan Singh Bedi thing, right? This guy was a world-class spinner. He never got in because Bedi was just there. So,
Wow, did not expect that analogy to come from
my generation.
Okay, or Stuart McGill and Shane Warne. There, I have my own.
Yeah, but now basically what's happened is because Brexit has happened, this whole Kolpak deal is no longer valid, right? So,
okay.
And it's not like they are going to bring it back either. Yeah. So anyone who is already there will need to either like renegotiate their contract or go back to where they came from. Yeah.
Ouch, that sounded mildly traumatizing.
I mean,
go back to Africa, not the best of...
The corollary to this in some way where for the Premier League, what happened was with the Premier League, the rule was passed for the Premier League to deal with Brexit was that players who are already present in the Premier League, whether they are from some EU countries or whatever, would have a special status of being recognized as domestic players. But any new players coming in, there would be a quota of like how many players can come in. And in the Premier League, actually, it's not the league that doesn't govern quota. So you can field an 11 with entirely 11 foreign players.
Correct.
More about the visa, right? So they will need. I mean, players who are from non-EU countries would need a work visa to play in the Premier League as professional players. So in that case, the spanner in the works was expected that the transfer window, the summer transfer window of this particular season that's there, 2020-21, was supposed to be a bumper transfer window because before Brexit came into effect, a whole bunch of teams wanted to get as many foreign players in so they can pack their teams with foreign players who would be recognized under that exception. The only problem being COVID came along. And since COVID came along, these guys have teams in the UK, sport in general around the world has suffered a lot, especially these teams, because they have not been having gate receipts. No fans in the stadium means gate receipts are down. So everyone's coffers are effectively empty. The 2020 transfer window was like muted as hell. And so there are not a lot of foreign players were brought into the team, into teams. And so now they are saying that in some way, there's two. There's a positive and a negative. The positive is going to be that a lot of young English players will get a lot of chances. Like even if they are playing at 2 tiers in the second or the third tier of the English football, they would get Premier League chances because their value will go up tremendously. And the second thing being that the work visas are granted for top tier players only from the other leagues, European leagues. So Premier League teams, which are obviously richer than the rest of the teams, would tend to buy top tier players. And so that would also mean the youth squads of European teams would get a lot more chances. Because top tier players would be heavily, Premier League teams will not be buying youth players from the Europe anymore.
Right.
They'll be buying top tier players. And so youth players from others. So generally they're saying Brexit across Europe, both for the UK as well as across Europe, would mean tremendous benefits for youth teams.
Wow.
Interesting. So, because of COVID, gate receipts no fans were allowed into the stadium and everyone switched to Microsoft Teams. So, gate receipts went down, but gates
receipts.
Oh, wow. Oh, my God.
Epic.
Fantastic.
I saw you sitting on something. I thought it was another point. I didn't know this was that.
Yeah, but one question. Did the Arsenal Invincibles team win without a single English player?
No.
I
That
mean,
was
some-
they during that season though was the first time that they no, it was not
Fielded
during
a
that
team.
season. Yeah, but slightly before that season was Arsenal was the first team that actually fielded an entire team of foreigners in English football.
And that's allowed.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
Arsene Wenger's effect. Like the whole foreigner phenomenon was actually Arsene Wenger because he trusted foreign players and their education a lot more, football education a lot more.
It is a bureaucrat's wet dream, right? So
Definitely.
make rules where no rules existed before.
Yeah. No, I can see like for professional teams, even the national teams, I can see like a whole bunch of new bureaucrats being hired to kind of like make sense of the rules, and lawyers are going to have a field day. So just being able to like say how to what loophole they can choose to kind of bring the player across and all that stuff. So
Surely there has to have been a headline somewhere. Lawyers have a field day football field.
Yeah.
This is not as good as the Gates one, I'm sorry.
No, Gates is epic. It's once in a lifetime thing.
Oh, that's why you said age gated also. Interesting.
Okay, trivia time. Do you
Trivia
know
time,
who's
yes.
the first Kolpak cricketer? I didn't know this. But the second player is from Zimbabwe, and you might definitely know him.
Henry Olongo.
No.
No, he wasn't Kolpak. He just moved to the UK.
This was in 2004. His brother has also played for Essex, but he had a British passport.
One of the Fowlers.
Yeah, Fowler.
Flower.
Flower. Yeah.
Grand Flower. Yeah.
By Fowler, you
Oh, it was Grand Flower.
Yeah.
Oh,
No, the
okay.
first ever Kolpak cricketer was Cloud Henderson from South Africa.
Hmm.
But the second one was Grand Flower. And then there have been like in the list of things that you would buy as an NFT, one moment was where Flintoff and Tino Best. Do you remember that?
I do remember that moment. Yes.
So Tino Best was the last batsman for West Indies, and like
Yeah.
Flintoff was basically sledging him, and he said, "Mind the windows, Tino." And immediate next ball, he steps out and like gets bowled. So I think
As a slight digression, just continuing the NFT conversation, what I'd like to have as an NFT from the 2011 World Cup, Nera throwing up on the pitch.
Banana vomit.
Banana vomit. After 6 for 23.
Yeah.
So if you're saying Microsoft Teams was used to do this Kolpak deal and all that, I'm guessing the first cricketer then was the result of cloud computing.
Oh, wow.
Well done. Nice. You redeemed yourself a little bit.
that was the best. So yeah, I was saying Tino Best.
Nice.
Tino Best has also played, and amongst the list of players, there are like very famous ones that we'll know, like Lance Klusner, Murray Goodwin, Paul Harris, Faf du Plessis before he played his first ODI for South Africa, Jack Rudolph.
Even some of these names.
Karl Langeveld. Yeah. I mean, all very famous. I think 2008 was like the heydays of this whole thing.
Andre Nell.
For
That guy
Justin Kemp.
Yeah. Andre Nell. Interesting. Andre Nell of Srishant hitting for a
yes.
fame.
Riding horse.
Yeah. Andre Nell was a guy
also something that you'll purchase for NFT.
Fidel Edwards. Yeah, lots of interesting.
Yeah. Nicky Boye, Ashwell Prince, Alvaro
basically like Shivnarayan Chatterpal. Okay.
Yeah, there you go. I am guessing he's still playing somewhere, even though he's well into his 40s. It's like, just keep... He actually played a match with his son also, no? Like Tej Naren Chanderpal and Shivnarayan Chanderpal, I think. Or I'm just making this up. Anyway, so yeah, it saw its heydays and now it's all under jeopardy. And given the kind of like crisis cricket is going through in nations other than, let's say, Australia, England, India, it doesn't augur well for the game. So yet another thing that Brexit has screwed over is cricket.
You can say that Brexit happened because of right-wing publications. So in a way, they are making heyday while the sun shines.
Oh, nice. That is really good, Chuck.
No,
very impressive.
Stop applauding this.
This is good padding. Good.
Yeah, I think we are more or less.
I think the natural end of the episode has arrived.
I do want to say, however, that not since Steve Waugh in Chennai 2001 has handball had such a effect on cricket, because you started off by saying handball. They're like,
Beautiful.
handball.
Beautiful.
Well done. Nicely.
Have any of you watched handball? It's like
The sport.
yeah, it is like
don't want to know what
basketball
else to
for
think
the
about.
vertically
Yeah.
challenged, right? For all the short guys play handball because they can't play
Yeah.
basketball. I think that's what it is.
Yeah. The first time you see it, it's like that Hindi movie meme, no, where people are there are a bunch of girls.
The Karishma Kapoor meme.
Yeah. Playing, yeah. Anyway.
Oh man,
Yeah.
incredible.
So,
All right.
yeah.
So Naren, do you wanna round us
Yeah,
off?
so
Seal the deal.
I think everyone should stay safe and stay unmoved and stay simplified. But anything else is absolutely fine.
And
We shall go back to where we came from.
Eat your ham sandwiches before you get into the Netherlands.
Yeah. All right.
The sandwich
Bye.
will be there.
See
The
you next
sandwich will
week
be
then.
the sandwich will be there on the side, and you'll longingly look at it and say, "I'm stare damn ham."
Oh
Oh my God.
See, this is what happens when you reach
Amsterdam.
the natural end of the episode.
Yeah.
Now unnatural things are happening.
Yeah. Okay.
Time to go. So
Thank
see you
you
next
so
week,
much.
guys. Yeah.
See you next week. Bye-bye.
Another
Bye.
episode of Simblified. Bye.
I hope you enjoyed that show. If you aren't following us on social media, please do. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. We'd like to thank our sponsors on the network this week, Cedar Tires and TheWholeTruthFoods.com. Thank you for your support. We did a bunch of cock and bulls this week. We had guests like Ayushi Amin and Puneet Mania for that. Besides that, Vasanti Hariprakash was on, as well as Jay Alani, a paranormal investigator. Really, really great week on Cyrus Says. Do check it out. Tune into This Round is on Me for an episode recorded from Gulmarg featuring one of India's professional alpine skiers, Arif Khan, who's looking forward to representing India at the Beijing Olympics. On The Habit Coach, Ashton has a chat with Kunal Rajput, a popular fitness trainer who recently completed 7 rounds of his Unlocked workout series. The reunified, simplified gang of Tony, Naren, Chuck, and Srikeit discussed NFTs on the latest episode. On The Millennial Athlete, Tanvi and Shlok looked back at all the England championships of the year so far and discussed the interesting highlights of the same. Also on Thale Harate, our Kannada podcast, Ganesh spoke to Archana Shyam of Antharanga Theatre in the latest episode. And on Kadai podcast, our Tamil show, Kavita Jiva shed light in another story about the bravery and excellence in the governance of the Pallava dynasty. And with that, I hope to see you again next week.
2020 is a difficult year. A global pandemic, protests, elections, recessions. You get the picture. What we need is a space where we can have nuanced discussions about global affairs and foreign policy. That's where I come in. My name is Hamsini Hariharan and I host the States of Anarchy podcast. Every second Tuesday, I speak to experts in the field of international relations to make a little more sense of the world. So join me on the IVM podcast app, website, or wherever you're listening to me right now.